Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squared for boxing news and views from around the internet. This is the post-fight review for the Simon Kean vs Don Haynesworth fight, and this one ended weirdly, and I have to say it was deeply suspicious. It just concluded after the fourth round, and why I say it was odd and suspicious is it wasn't a fight with a lot of action. Don Haynesworth didn't look, too taxed in terms, even though he's a big guy, he wasn't being made to work in this fight to the point that you thought he was going to retire at any point. And he just, after the fourth round, didn't come out, didn't answer the bell for the fifth. And it led me to sort of tweet, did he bet on himself or something? Because it was a bizarre ending. And I frankly don't want to see Haynesworth again if that's the sort of thing he's going to deliver up to us. I mean, even the fight itself, Haynesworth was doing just enough every round to make it look like he wanted to be there, that he was throwing just enough sort of resistance just to make it look credible. That was the feeling that I was getting, because it was a fight where, for the first couple of rounds at least, not much was happening. I mean, the first round was super low volume. You had Don Haynesworth and Simon Kean trading jabs, but it was another Kean fight where he was the guy coming forward and then basically waiting and watching, not doing a lot. He was in range to throw punches quite a few times and didn't. So I don't know how many punches were thrown in that first round, but it wasn't many. And it was maybe a case of 4 or 5 landed jabs and maybe a right to the body or something like that from Simon Kean. And that was it. There was the odd punch thrown in, something resembling anger for Don Haynesworth, but it was a pretty pedestrian round, followed up by a round 2 similar. Rounds 3, rounds 4, Kean had a little bit more success. He was starting to get a little bit more aggressive, but it was a case, as I mentioned, for rounds 1 and round 2, just didn't really do too much. He wasn't really working that hard. He'd sort of land something and then all of a sudden get a little bit of confidence and have a flurry for a couple of seconds. And you might have got sort of 2 or 3 of those sort of flurries or that piece of activity every round. And I got to say, after round 1, because they went straight into Simon Kean's corner, he was sucking in the big ones, really breathing hard. And I thought, this is an 8-rounder. Sure, there's been some inactivity. He hasn't fought since, it's been over a year now, so I can understand why it was an 8-rounder. But I think Simon Kean is a bit too muscle-bound at this point, because he looked fatigued after 1 round. And that was in a round when not much was happening and there really wasn't a lot of activity. It shouldn't have been that taxing. But as I say, Haynesworth, he took a couple of shots in round 3 and round 4. There was a little bit more activity from Kean, a little bit of complaining every now and then from Don Haynesworth. He complained of a rabbit punch, and that allowed Kean to sort of unload a combination on him. But it wasn't like he was getting battered. It wasn't that sort of fight. Kean was winning the rounds. He was what you would say is in control, but he wasn't dominating. And this is where I was thinking it's another effort where he looks a little bit gun shy, just can't seem to pull the trigger when he is in range. And we're talking, most of the shots that landed were single shots. He didn't seem to really look to work in combination unless there was those little flurries where he got a little bit of confidence because a jab might have rocked Haynesworth's head back or something like that. But again, another performance from Kean where it was just underwhelming. And it makes me wonder, and I'll come to that in a moment, because round 4, it ends, no indication of what's to come, because you have almost the full minute ahead of round 5, and then all of a sudden it's waved off, and you're left wondering what just happened. It was bizarre. And Haynesworth, don't want to see him again. We've seen him in some other fights where he's actually put up a better effort. I think it was a much more competitive fight with Zhang Jilei a couple of years ago. But clearly he's just here for the paydays. He was doing just enough to get by in those rounds to make it look like he wanted to fight, especially against the guy who was somewhat apprehensive to let his hands go. So, came for the paycheck and leaves. And potentially, who knows, maybe he did bet on himself, because deeply suspicious the way that it ended, just a retirement, and he wasn't getting battered, as I say. But in terms of Kean, I wonder what is the what next. I mean, at this point, I mean, say BoxRec, for example, has him as the number 37 heavyweight in the world, but he looks to be a very vulnerable heavyweight. Defensively, quite open, and even Haynesworth, every sort of sliver of success that he had in this fight, it was almost like it had, there was like a visceral impact on Kean, who would react and jump back or be forced back. You know, it's sort of, yeah, there's just something about Kean since he's had that knockout loss a couple of years ago now to, what was it, Dylan Carmen, that was 2018. He hasn't been the same since then. And it is going to be a case, I truly believe this, when he steps up and faces someone halfway credible, he's going to get knocked out. It's all well and good against the sort of competition that he's been facing. The likes of Liakovic, that was in 2019, Daniel Martz in 2020, Don Haynesworth in 2021. Those guys know their role, that sort of stuff. And even in those fights, he didn't look like he sort of was, you know, the boss. He wasn't bossing those type of fights, and he should be. That level of opposition, he should be dominant. You know, you think about the likes of some other guys, say Aslanbek Makhmudov, he would have absolutely obliterated some of these guys. Kean, I don't want to say he went life and death or laboured or anything like that, but he just didn't look good. Didn't look dominant as he should against this level of opposition. So as I say, I do think that Simon Kean, as soon as he comes back to any real level, because let's face it, he hasn't, I do think he is going to get beaten and beaten handily, and I do think he's just too open. He's going to get knocked out. Someone is going to snatch, you know, a win against him in impressive fashion. So yeah, it's interesting sort of having seen after he came back, and he obviously beat Dylan Carmen in the rematch and he got a stoppage in that one, but we've seen Carmen since then diminishing returns. He got knocked out by Aslanbek Makhmudov basically from the first punch of their fight. So it is a case about, well, what version of Carmen did he face, but also where is Kean really at, because I think he is open to being stopped whenever he does come back up. But yeah, strange ending to the fight, suspicious ending to the fight given the almost lack of action through it. I mean, you wouldn't even sort of say it was sparring because it was so low volume. It was ridiculous. Anyway, what did you make of it all? Were you impressed by Kean? I can't say I was. It's another win. He advances to, 20-1? That one loss being 3 years ago. So the rebuild, you'd have to say, it's complete. They need to be stepping this guy up and actually putting him in a proper fight. It's kind of got to be sink or swim. Already 32 years old. I know he's been calling for the likes of Tony Yoka before, all that sort of stuff. That's going to end very badly for him. But at some point, they're going to have to put him in a hard fight and just sort of see how's it going to go. Drop a comment loud and often. Hit like, hit subscribe. Follow me on Twitter, boxing_squared. I'm out.